Rejoice, ye penny-pinching nerds, rejoice! For this is a season unbound by our bank accounts, unfettered by fees. A legendary age of liberty. This is the Summer of Free! Hey, this is Peter Franson from ChristianGeekCentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions here with a quick Summer of Free update on some fun stuff that you can take advantage of this summer. These are all actually submitted by listeners and viewers of the Spirit Blade Underground podcast and the Christian Geek Central YouTube channel. I'd love to get your suggestions as well. We're going to keep celebrating the Summer of Free through the end of July and then through most of August as well. So you can send those to me at paeter@spiritblade.net. Just like JB did, who offered up Robocraft as a suggestion. He says that it's an MMO that lets you make your own battle bot and then go out and fight on different planets with other player-made bots. It's one of those rare free-to-plays where the premium currency truly is just there for the sake of cosmetics and somewhat speeding the rate at which one can gain access to higher tier battles. So yeah, this one looks like the production values look pretty cool, as a lot of free-to-play games do. But it's good to know that it's not like an extremely mercenary type of monetization scheme. And then another one that he suggested is PlanetSide 2. Now this one, I pass along the suggestion just with a little bit of warning that apparently it has a somewhat prevalent, JB says, microtransaction system. And I just watched the review for PlanetSide 2 for PlayStation 4, on which you can also play it, PC and PlayStation 4. And Robocraft I didn't mention, but that's available on PC and Mac. But this game is a AAA shooter/tactical combat MMO, JB writes, which holds a number of creative mechanics and an intriguing lore. Beautiful graphics and large amounts of progressional content make it a very enjoyable grind, which leads to its one flaw of having, again, he says, a somewhat prevalent microtransaction system. And the GameSpot review for this game noted that really that's only noticeable after the first few hours of play. So the first few hours of play, it's going to seem like you're getting the in-game currency that you need to kind of level up and progress and stuff, but after that, it does come much more slowly unless you're willing to put in real world money. So I do put, with a little bit of warning, check that one out if you have a strong resistance to temptation of that sort of thing. Normally I'd like to feature, stuff that is not going to involve any kind of temptation at all, but I put that one out there because it looks like it's an otherwise solid game. All right, moving on. Drew Rubb wrote in and suggested Silent Memories. This is a paper and pencil RPG, which apparently won the Silver Ennie for Best Free Games in 2013. And I point that out because if you read this description here, there's some weird kind of like typos and copy errors that make me think, oh man, I really don't want to download this. If this is any indication of kind of like the copy editing that went on in the product itself, and maybe it's not, but I'll just try to read this here on the webpage at Morning Sky, and that's skye.com. And at Robocraft and PlanetSide 2, you can find those pretty easily just by doing a Google search on their names. But this one, you'll find Silent Memories at morningsky, skye.com. The description says it's a role-playing game about finding out who you are before you die. Again, paper and pencil role-playing game. It says, and I'll try to not stumble through the errors here and make corrections as I read. You awaken from a cryogenic sleep aboard a spaceship with no knowledge of who you are or how you came to be here. You have no knowledge of your mission or even where you are going. All that remains is your training and the impending sense that something is very wrong. This is a science fiction horror role-playing game about trying to survive as you begin to piece your memories back together. As the dangers increase, so too do the recollections of your past. Unfortunately, what you recall may affect your trust of the people around you or even trust in yourself. Ultimately, one may be revealed to be something evil. And I believe the phrase that's missing in this next sentence is, you don't know who, and then it goes on to say, you are or how you came to be. You have no knowledge of your mission or even where you are going. All that remains is your training and the impending sense that something is very wrong. and then it kind of repeats that copy in the next paragraph, and then they've got like an audio sample of like an actual gameplay session and the link to download the full game for free, as well as an example scenario. So if you're looking for a free option, want to try a new paper and pencil RPG with your gaming group this summer, but don't want to fork out any cash, or maybe you're saving up for another one of those mainline RPG books that's going to be coming out in the near future, or at Gen Con or something like that, maybe pass some time by trying this for one night. And then moving on, lastly, this recommendation comes from Kim Wicki, who you might know from the Spirit Blade Underground podcast as kind of our Tolkien expert / superfan. She's also involved in POSTOS, pos-tos.com, if you haven't checked it out, is a YouTube channel that celebrates and also makes fun of Star Trek and the good and the bad, and mostly, I think, kind of pokes fun at the bad, but Kim and Matt are big fans of Star Trek, so it's not coming from like an outsider's view. But anyway, Kim recommends Extra Credits, which I checked out. She says, she writes, there's a YouTube channel named Extra Credits that Matt and I discovered recently. They've got a large backlog of videos on the subject of all things gaming. Primarily, they focus on the design and craft of video games, since one of the writers is a game designer. But they also explore the social aspects of gaming, the potential for gamers to stimulate learning and conversation, the question of whether games should be treated as art, and the history and future of the industry. It's an intelligent examination of games and gaming culture, delivered in weekly bite-sized chunks and accompanied by some pretty funny artwork. They offer new videos every Wednesday in their primary series, plus an installment of Extra History, their sister show, where the same team of creators tackles interesting bits of historical trivia every Sunday. Excuse me, yeah, so I messed up my parentheticals there. Let's see here. And let's see, they offer new videos every Wednesday in their primary series, plus an installment of Extra History, which is their sister show, every Sunday, and other shorts such as Let's Plays and recommendation videos at irregular intervals. Sorry, I was trying to click play so that those of you watching could see this little promo video of theirs. I just wanted to give you a sense of kind of the artwork, because I started I started watching it, and then I realized that for me personally, I couldn't watch this show. I had to just listen to it, because they use that style of humor where there's primarily just a narrator talking on a subject, and then they give you like all these really quick flashes. Theirs aren't as quick as some others. Some really alternate their images really quickly. But they'll put these images up there, that are related to what they're talking about, but in kind of a tangential. Did I say that right? kind of way, so it's like, or there's some extra humor in there, that's like, that kind of like distracts you from what they're actually saying. If you're like me and you're more of like a slow, deliberate thinker, when I watch these videos, I get distracted. I'm like, oh, they made a little joke there, and that wasn't obvious if you're just listening to it, but they're making, so like the visual component is this entirely, new or additional, I should say, layer that has humor and stuff that's often not even hinted at in what you're hearing. And so I found for me that watching the video, I was distracted from the audio content and what they were actually talking about. I was distracted away from that by the visual images that they were showing. So, but what I've done is, like, now while I'm exercising or something like that, or while I'm doing stupid podcast episode transferring to a new host, which I've been doing for the last 2.5 weeks, then I'll pop this on in the background. And I find it really enjoyable to listen to. It's also interesting that they, like many commentators on video games and stuff like that, are noticeably coming from an educated background, but a secular one. So they're referring to secular and humanist kind of philosophers and thinkers as they probe into some of the deeper issues that video games explore. So it's interesting because sometimes they'll say something, oh yeah, that's an interesting kind of examination of the human condition, but then they'll say something that's based on a false assumption. It'll be like, oh guys, you're kind of limiting yourself a little bit, but by keeping your mindset in a purely secular mentality and not allowing for the existence of God and the additional kind of meaning and purpose, that brings into discussion. For example, the whole discussion of art, should video games be considered art? And I could do probably a whole section on that, but really I think what that conversation is about is, are video games valuable? And then you have to say, well, what makes something valuable. And that is going to be a totally different discussion if you decide we are not going to bring the concept of God into this conversation, versus whether you do allow that concept to be brought into the conversation. So, so kind of the secular/humanist philosophy that the writers, their background, is coming from is shows up certainly, but I mean, it's still, I don't find that like offensive. It's just something I'm just kind of like processing along with everything else. Like, okay, well, they're coming from this background, that's interesting. But yeah, they do have a lot of interesting things to say about games, and that's thought provoking. And so anyway, yeah, that's pretty easy to recommend. So anyway, that's it for this installment of the Summer of Free. Stay tuned for more as we go further into the summer. ChristianGeekCentral.com